Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another video here on the SSA Philosophy channel, where we dive right on into the philosophy of characters from video games to TV shows to movies, etc., etc. So, of course, in today's video, we're gonna go over the philosophy of the character known as Omar Little. So, as always, ladies and gentlemen, we're not gonna waste any time. So, let's go on ahead. Let's get into this. So, as always, we love to go on ahead and give the introduction overall to all of our characters. So, Omar Little, a name that strikes fear and a flicker of admiration into the hearts of Baltimore's, denizens. Now, Omar is a complex and captivating character from the acclaimed HBO drama series known as The Wire, played by the late great Michael K. Williams. Now, Omar is more really than just, say, your average stick up man, but really he is a legend, a walking contradiction, and really a man who operates by his own moral code, carving a unique path through the brutal landscape of the city's drug trade. So, really clad in a signature long brown duster that pretty much hides a shotgun, a hefty handgun, and a bulletproof vest, Omar isn't pretty much afraid to waltz into, the drug corners in Baltimore, because of course his whistle, the haunting, melody of the farmer in the dale, preceding him like a sort of like grim herald, and the thing about Omar is that he targets only the drug dealers, in the streets of Baltimore, relieving them of their ill-gotten gains with ruthless efficiency. And really this makes him a thorn, makes him like a thorn in the side of every kingpin and like Barksdale lieutenant, and even later on, throughout the wire, even like a bit to, to the Stanfield organization as well, too. You know, and really Omar, like really he's a constant threat, really like say to like, early in the series, to the Barksdales, a constant threat to their profits and a symbol of disruption in their carefully constructed empires. But the thing is, though, is that Omar, he really is more than just, in this case, more than just a bandit. But really, he operates with a surprising sense of honor, refusing really to harm innocent bystanders and even offering a, begrudging respect, to some within the police force, particularly, those willing, to play it straight. And really what this creates is really creates like say a fascinating tension, one pretty much in where, it has like this tension and where, a criminal, lauded by some corners, of the community, particularly, the downtrodden, residents who really see him as a sort of like kind of like Robin Hood figure, taking, from the corrupt and the powerful. However, though, Omar's world is pretty much far from black and white because Omar really is like a gay man in a hyper masculine environment, navigating a life filled with, danger and secrecy. And really, his sexuality, it really adds another layer really to his defiance because really it's a challenge to the established power structures that really control every facet of life on Baltimore streets. And really, as the seasons really of The Wire as they unfold, we really delve deeper into, Omar's psyche because really we see glimpses of a troubled past, a loyalty to a chosen family and a fierce independence that pretty much borders on recklessness. The thing about Omar is that he's a survivor. He's a man who has carved out a space for himself, really in a world that seems determined to crush him. But even the most cunning players can make mistakes. And Omar's unwavering adherence to his own code ultimately leads pretty much him down to a perilous path. So really Omar, really he's more than just a character, but he's really a force of nature in The Wire because really he embodies the show's unflinching portrayal of urban decay, the cyclical nature of violence, and really the ever present struggle for survival. And really, he's a reminder that even in the heart of darkness, a flicker of defiance, a hint of compassion, and an unwavering sense of self can leave a lasting impact. So, really, with the brief introduction, already out the way, so let's go on ahead and dive really into the philosophy, really, of the character Omar. And this is a philosophy I like to call the Robin Hood of the shotgun. Omar Little's code and the morality of the streets. So let's go on ahead and really dive into this philosophy of Omar Little. So Omar Little, a whirlwind of fury and theatricality in The Wire. He isn't really like say just your average stick up man, but really he's a man who carves his own path through the brutal landscape of Baltimore's drug trade. Guided by really a personal code askew from conventional morality. So really, let's go on ahead and dive deep into the philosophy, pretty much of the character Omar, the Spectre, who really forces us to question the lines between, good, bad, and survival. So really the first, tenant to really focus on when it comes to the character, when it comes to the philosophy of Omar Little is the game within the game. So really Omar, so really he operates on a self-made set of rules because he preys only on the game. And the game apparently overall has pretty much the drug dealers, drug dealers who peddle misery, leaving civilians unharmed. And really, it's a Robin Hood esque twist, but really without the charity type of like, yeah, pretty much in this case, it's like a Robin Hood esque, yeah, pretty much it's like a Robin Hood esque, twist, but without the charity. So really, this distinction really it sets him apart, from like other different characters, from like all the other like like kinds of characters that you see in The Wire early on in the series, because the thing about Omar is that he doesn't really see himself like say as a villain, but really a player with his own honor. Pretty much his own honor system. Within like a system that he despises. And even Omar himself. I mean, even he said himself. Of course. In the first season of The Wire, that that he, I mean, like he's done some dirt himself. He's done a lot of bad things. Even in the life that he's lived, but at the same time, though, he's admitted to himself. That he never put his gun on anybody that wasn't part of the game. So really that pretty much just goes to show you that Omar, like, he's not a good man, he's not a good person, but he is a player overall who does have his own, like, say, sense of honor. He does have his own code, one overall that he has and that he's always had pretty much, throughout the entirety of the series as a whole. So the thing is that, when it comes down to like, the drug trade. So see the drug trade really for Omar, it's the brutal world, the brutal world that he navigates in. And really the thing about the drug trade is that the drug trade, it has its own set of rules. A ruthless code of violence and, power struggles. And then when it comes to like playing by his own rules. Now Omar, he acknowledges, the game's existence. Pretty much at the end of The Wire, of course, basically saying, all in the game, you know. But the thing about Omar is that he doesn't really blindly like follow its every dictate. Like, I mean, he doesn't like follow like say every like, like say rule, like really in this case, or at least, doesn't blindly follow it, you know, like doesn't blindly follow it like others probably do, in the wire itself is also. And then really when it comes like preying on the predators. Now see the thing about Omar, and like I said already, is that he targets only drug dealers, and he also not only targets the drug dealers but the stashes, also avoiding civilians and those not actively involved in the drug trade. And really when it comes down to like the inner game, really when it comes to like Omar, really within this immoral drug world, his personal code is really is not harming innocence. A line that most in the game, most characters in the pretty much most characters really in the show really that they readily cross. And then when it comes like say down to like Omar, when it comes to like him, when it comes down to like disruption and chaos, the thing is he thrives on unsettling the established order. Like robbing drug operations. So yeah, really robbing drug operations. It really is just like not about like it's not about just enrichment, but really it's about thumbing his nose at the power structures. And then, when it also comes down, like, say, to the survival and identity, like, thing is that his adherence, to his own, really to his own code and his own flamboyant persona are really a way of, carving out a space, really for himself in a world that offers him few options. So really, and also another thing to focus on is also known as, pretty much as the interplay. So really Omar, like he understands, the drug game, pretty yeah. I mean he understands, the game's, mechanics. I mean he understands, the drug trade, really in how it runs, because he uses his, yeah, pretty much he uses like say its established routines and codes to his advantage. Like robbing, during drug buyouts. And then, when it comes like say, with him bending and not breaking, the thing is that he pushes boundaries, but he doesn't completely dismantle the game because he recognizes that, within its confines, he can carve out a space for himself. And then, also when it comes down to like, moral superiority, the thing is that it's now really in this case, now it really is debatable, really honestly, if Omar is truly good, because like I said, I mean, he's a bad person. I mean, he's still a criminal, but compared to like the violence and, the destruction, that the drug trade actually wreaks, he creates like a twisted form of justice in his own right. But the thing is, though, is that we have to remember this. We have to remember that Omar, he's a very complex character. He's a survivor, he's a rebel, and a moral, and really, he's a moral enigma, all playing, his own game, within a brutal system. And also, another tenet we want to focus on, really, when it comes to the character of Omar Little, is justice delivered with a bang. So really the institutions, meant to uphold justice, really they have failed Omar's community. Because the thing is that in the wire, yeah, police are corrupt. The cycle of violence perpetuates. And the thing about Omar is that pretty much he becomes his own judge, his own jury, and his own executioner, for those who violate his code. And really, it's a violent brand of justice, one that is fueled by a deep seated resentment. So really, Omar from The Wire, he really isn't like say this beacon of moral rectitude, because he's a stick up artist who targets a drug game. But really, there's a twist. But the thing is that there is a twisted code to Omar, to his operations, because he steals only from other criminals and he operates with a ruthless sense of fairness. So really, here's a bit of a glimpse, really, into like say his philosophy when it comes to like this tenet alone. When it comes to justice, justice delivered with a bang. So on one hand, the thing about Omar is that the drug trade. The thing about the drug trade is that it thrives on the violence and it thrives on the betrayal. But the thing about Omar is that he doesn't hesitate to dole out his own retribution, because he believes that those who inflict violence on others deserve a taste of their own medicine. And the thing also that Omar is that, the thing is, he has no faith in the formal justice system, because he sees it as corrupt and easily manipulated by the money and the power. And also, he also enforces his own, like, say, brand of justice, one that is ruled by fear and retaliation. And while he is ruthless, the thing is that Omar, while as ruthless as he is, the thing is that he does have his own sense of fairness, because he targets all drug organizations, not picking sides. Because in his twisted world, everyone who plays the game deserves the same risk. And pretty much in his own words, the thing is, like in his own words, the game is out there. And it's either you play the game or you get played. So really the thing about Omar is like, he knows the drug game is a zero sum affair, because someone, always gets hooked. And he positions himself as the inevitable consequence for those who actually engage in the violence. So really, Omar's like flamboyant presence and really his theatrical robberies are pretty much a mockery of the secrecy and intimidation, that is used by the drug lords. And really, he takes like a perverse, like say, joy in exposing their vulnerability. Because I mean, like there's been like several times in where Omar, like when it comes like to his robberies, I mean, there's actually like like one like little robbery that Omar has like in season 3, I think it was. I'm not really sure what episode it was again, but I know that there was one robbery that that Omar actually had did. And I think it was with like with a with like I think yeah I think it was like a yeah I think it was a robbery in one episode early in the season where he actually had robbed like a like he had robbed like a stash house, where he pretty much pretended that he was like a grown like yeah, pretty much he like pretended he was like an old man, I think, in a wheelchair. And pretty much one of his like one of his partners pretty much pretended to be like his nurse. pretty much helping them and aiding them out. And then, obviously the guys, that were pretty much defending the drug stash house, obviously I let them in. And then, once they realized, that it wasn't like an old man, but when they realized that it was Omar, that, was in, that was the old man in a wheelchair, like immediately it's like, Omar, like you can just tell, like even like on Omar's face, like even telling by his own reaction that, he enjoyed, pretty much, the way how he robbed the stash house and how he pretty much enjoyed every single bit of it. That's the thing. I mean, he takes like yeah. So I mean, so that right there's like an example of, Omar taking like this sort of like perverse joy and exposing like, say, like these drug lords and their vulnerability, and pretty much when it comes like, say, to like humiliating them by robbing their stash houses, and pretty much messing up their stashes and then pretty much taking it for himself or pretty much just, destroying it, whatever, like say, yeah, pretty much in this case, whichever, I mean, pretty much whatever, I mean, like in this case, like whichever, like say, one that he does, whether if it's like taking it for himself, and selling them, or at the same time, probably just, destroying them and probably like, like pouring them down the drain, down the sewers, basically just to cost them more, money and such, basically just pissing them off even more and more. So yeah, so really Omar's brand of justice. So yeah, really it's a brutal one, but it's born out of a belief in a twisted form of order because he may not be a hero, but the thing about Omar is that while may not be a hero, but overall he does become a legend. A legend, pretty much a symbol of like retribution, really in a world where the traditional system fails. And also another like say thing that we want to focus on when it comes to Omar, you know, in his philosophy really is loyalty, a double-edged sword, So yeah, so really Omar, like his loyalty, to his crew and his unwavering adherence, to his code are really his defining traits because he protects those close to him fiercely, very fiercely indeed he does, and even at his own peril. However, though, this loyalty can be a blind spot because really what it does is that it leads him to underestimate the ruthlessness of those who wouldn't even hesitate to break the game's unwritten rules. So the thing is that, Omar, like, he wasn't loyal, like, say, to the institutions or the ideals, but really his loyalty was reserved for his own crew and his own moral code. And this really puts him in a complex position, highlighting the double-edged sword of loyalty. Because on one hand, Omar's unwavering loyalty to his partner Brandon allowed him to operate with a sense of security and, camaraderie. Because he wasn't just some thug, but he was a part of something, a loyalty that gave him purpose and a reason to fight. And this loyalty also even fueled his own brutal revenge for Brandon's death, a loyalty that demanded retribution. But this same loyalty, though, it blinded Omar to the bigger picture, because really his loyalty was a shield that prevented him from seeing the moral decay around him. Because really it also made him predictable, like really a flaw that ultimately led to his own demise. And Omar's story, it really is a cautionary tale, really a cautionary tale about the dangers of misplaced loyalty, and blind loyalty, how it can turn a good man into a pawn, sacrificing his own morals for a brotherhood that may not even be worth it. Thing is that true loyalty should be reserved for those who deserve it, those who share your values and fight for the right things. So for Omar, loyalty was really a double-edged sword for him because really it gave him strength and it gave him purpose, but it also limited his own vision and it led him down a dark path. So really, in this case, the lesson here overall that I think we all can learn in this case really is that loyalty is a virtue. Yes, it is a virtue, but it must be wielded, and it must be wielded wisely. It must be wielded wisely. And also another tenet to focus on of Omar's character and and really his philosophy is really living on the outside. So So Omar is an outsider, a specter who exists, on the fringes of the drug trade because he doesn't really crave the power or territory, but only survival and a sliver of integrity in a world devoid of it. So really this outsider status, it really allows him the freedom to challenge the established order, but it also makes him a target in a world that thrives on conformity. So the thing is that Omar, like really, when it comes to Omar, like he sees the game, like he sees the system really as inherently unfair because the corner boys get caught while the big fish swim free. And this cynicism really it fuels his own ruthlessness. And really, despite his profession, he has a strict moral code. And because the thing is, and the reason why, why I explain this, so many times about his own moral code, because really it's very important. Because the thing is that, Omar, like, despite him being like not a good character, well, I mean, really not like a good person, I mean, because he is, he is still a bad person because he does like do very like illegal things, out on the streets. When he's, obviously, taking on drug dealers, but still, his crimes are still bad, still, and he's still like, not a good, like, not a good man. But at the same time, though, he has a strict moral code because that's the thing, because he doesn't steal from the weak, but only from the game itself because he only targets those people, targets the drug dealers, he targets the stash houses, like he doesn't really target the addicts, you know. So really it's a warped like Robin Hood mentality, a way for him to carve, like say out of like say, pretty much to carve out like a sliver of justice in a corrupt system. And then on top of that, like when it comes to him operating on the outside, the thing is that when it comes to like, operating on the outside, you know, outside the law and the social order, you know, and really he creates like his own space, refusing to be like a pawn in someone else's game. And this independence, even though while it is good at one on one end, while it's good to be independent, not necessarily having to be on a side, having to choose one or the other, but at the same time though, it comes at a cost because it's constant vigilance and also like the ever present threat of violence that's always going to be pretty much always going to be surrounding you time and time and time again. And then the thing is also is that Omar, like he commands respect, but he commands that respect though through fear and also a fierce sense of self-preservation. And the thing is, he doesn't really seek acceptance, but he really demands it. This like say coming in cold approach. Really, what it does is that it keeps him unpredictable and it also keeps him dangerous. So really, Omar, like really, he walks like a tightrope, aware that his lifestyle guarantees a violent end. Because really, he seems almost to court the danger, perhaps as a way to reclaim some control, really in a life that is defined by chaos. So really, Omar's part, like his, like this part of his philosophy, really, it's a code of survival. Really in a world in where only, pretty much where the only way to win is to rewrite the rules entirely. So really, it's a very fascinating and at the same time disturbing look at the human capacity to carve out meaning, even in the face of utter despair. And also another tenet to focus on when it comes to Omar's philosophy really is known as the moral gray area. So really, in this case, is Omar a hero? Is he a villain? The thing is, though, is that the answer it pretty much lies in the murky waters of morality. Because, as I said, he commits all these violent acts, but his targets are far from the innocent. And he offers like a glimmer of hope, for those that are trapped in the game, but his methods are undeniably brutal. But the thing is, though, is that Omar, like, he forces us to confront the complexities of morality in a system that is rife, with all types of corruption. And then really Omar, like, and like I said, so many times I said in this video, but it all really overall makes so much sense, and it's also very, very important to keep mentioning it as well too. But the thing is, like Omar, like he targets only drug dealers, preying on those who exploit his community, and he sees himself like as a sort of form of vigilante justice, evening the odds in a broken system, because he has a code, doesn't harm civilians, doesn't harm children or anyone outside the game. You know, he even warns his own rivals before even hitting their own corners. And really, this self-imposed code, really, it creates a sense of like warped honor. And then again, and like I said, because Omar, he grew up in a world where the police are corrupt and the powerless, and powerless really against the drug trade. And he believes that the system is rigged against him and his community. So really, despite like his Robin Hood persona, he is ultimately motivated by self-preservation because he recognizes the danger that he's in and he uses that ruthlessness as a shield. So yeah, really Omar, like really his philosophy. So yeah, really his philosophy, it does raise really in this case, it does raise a lot of complex questions. And these questions overall are like, can violence be justified? Morality in a desperate world, and then breaking the cycle versus, perpetuating it. So really when it comes down like, to like, can violence be justified? Now, the thing is, he uses violence to fight violence, perpetuating the cycle. So really, does the end justify the means? And also, morality in a desperate world is really, so really, is there room for a moral code within a broken system? Because he creates his own, blurring those lines between thief and vigilante. And then when it comes to like breaking the cycle versus like perpetuating it, the thing is, like, does his targeting of drug dealers weaken the power structure, or simply does it create a power vacuum? So really, Omar is a very compelling figure. He's a very compelling character because really he forces us to grapple with these moral complexities. Because really, he's a reminder that sometimes in the face of because I mean, sometimes in the face of overwhelming justice, well, pretty much in the face of overwhelming injustice, the lines between good and bad become desperately blurred. And really, with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that pretty much overall comes down to the conclusion, really, of the video. So really, overall, Omar's philosophy. So really, his philosophy is a paradox. Really, it's a rebellion. Pretty much, it's a rebellion against the dehumanizing forces of the drug trade, because he's a reminder that even in the darkest corners, a twisted sense of honor can exist, forcing us to question the very definition of good and evil in a world gone bad. And then, really, when it comes down to this, when it comes down to like, Omar being like a force of disruption, because see, and like I said, and I know so many times, I'm probably sure you might have been maybe a little bit tired of hearing this so many times. Like I said, it's so important, really, to his own character. But like, he operates by his own moral code. His own code, robbing drug dealers with a flamboyant disregard for the hierarchies of the game. His signature shotgun, the whistle, and the bulletproof vest make him all a feared figure because he defies the expectations, being a gay man who commands respect in a hyper masculine world, because he preys on a system that he views as corrupt, becoming a symbol of chaos for those peddling drugs and profiting from the city's decay. So really, and also when it comes like, say, beyond the mask, the thing is that Omar, like, the thing is, Omar is this, the thing I think we have to all realize is that Omar is far from really just being like a one-dimensional villain. Really, Omar, I wouldn't say he's overall like a villain, really, in this case, but really he's more like a guy who really in this case I wouldn't necessarily say is a good man, because I mean he's a bad guy, but at the same time though he's not evil. Because I mean there's a difference between bad and evil. But at the same time though, there are like, times where we see Omar, actually do some good. And we actually a lot of times, sticks, to his word and sticks to his code, because we do like see glimpses of vulnerability beneath like that tough exterior of his own character. Because the thing about Omar is that he's not a psychopath. Like, he's not a psycho. He's not somebody overall that lacks empathy or lacks care for anybody, because he mourns the loss of his friends, and also he has so much loyalty to those that he trusts, and that loyalty is absolutely unwavering. And then really when it also comes down to Omar, like really when it comes like to like, say, a moral conundrum. Now Omar, his crusade against the drug trade, on one hand it presents like, say, a moral dilemma, because while yes he targets criminals, his methods are still violent, blowing those lines between justice and vengeance. So really, is he a vigilante or simply another player in the game, albeit a more flamboyant one? Now, The Wire avoids, all the easy answers, and really that's the one thing overall that I like about The Wire, as a show, as one of the biggest reasons why it's one of my favorite shows of all time. Because the thing is that it doesn't like give you all these easy answers, but it really like gets you, like, because that's the thing. I mean, it avoids the easy answers, but really it leaves you as the viewer, to kind of grapple with, like, pretty much to grapple with these complexities. Really, I mean, pretty much, leaving you to like dive down deeper and really to explore yourself and really to like go down and dive deeper really into like trying to figure out exactly like say really in this case on the fact that is he that is he a vigilante, is he another player on the streets, is he a good man, is he a bad man, is that's the thing. I mean, that pretty much overall is one of the biggest reasons and why I like The Wire so much as a show in its entirety, because of that fact. Because I mean, it doesn't give us easy answers, but it really gives us like say a lot of like hard like say questions really overall that really overall hard really for us to even give an answer, at least a definitive one at that. And then really a legacy of disruption. So really Omar's impact on The Wire, really it is undeniable, because really what he does is that he injects a dose of chaos into the established order, forcing us as the viewers to question who the real villains are. And really his death, a brutal betrayal orchestrated by those that he challenged. Really, it is a powerful reminder of the show's unforgiving world. So really, Omar, like his legend, it lives on the streets. Lives on in the streets, and really, it's a testament to his audacity and his refusal to be cowed by the system. So really, the thing about Omar is that in conclusion, he's more really than just a captivating character, but really he embodies the complexities of Baltimore's drug trade, because he's a symbol of resilience in the face of overwhelming odds, and really a reminder that even in the darkest corners, a flicker of defiance can shine through. So really, his legacy continues to resonate a lot with a lot of viewers. Continues to resonate with a lot of us, and also is a testament to the enduring power of The Wire and the unforgettable performance of Michael K. Williams. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that pretty much overall is the end of the video here today. And if you stay long to watch this video in its entirety, I want to thank you. I want to thank you very so much. If you have stayed this long to watch this video in its entirety, and of course, in this case, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more, explorations into the minds of your favorite characters. And of course, hit the notification bell to also stay updated on my latest videos as well too. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, that is all here today. So overall, I want to thank you all. I want you all to have a very beautiful, blissful, and wonderful day. And with all that being said, always remember, ladies and gentlemen, always remember to always be smooth, to always be steady, and to always be aggressive. Peace.